There have been plenty of journeyman quarterbacks making their way around the NFL over the years. Some you know well, and some flew under the radar as they bounced around the league from team to team. Some have seen a lot of success, and others managed just enough to stay on an NFL roster. But two things all these journeyman QBs have in common is that they were able to stick around the league for at least a decade, and while some may have spent years playing for one franchise, they all suited up for at least 6 different teams. This is a 2-part series, so get set because this is part 1 of some of the most talented and most well-traveled journeyman quarterbacks in NFL history. When you think of NFL journeyman, odds are that one of the names that comes to mind is Josh McCown. McCown was a solid quarterback, but spent most of his career bouncing around the league as a backup, playing with 12 different teams over 18 years. He began his career with the Cardinals in 2002, where he lasted 4 seasons, but this was the only time in his career he'd spend longer than 3 years with one team. After the Cardinals, McCown spent 1 year with the Lions in 2006 when they went 0-16, followed by 1 year with the Raiders, then the 2008 preseason with the Dolphins, but he was released and signed by the Panthers for 2 years. After the Panthers, McCown played 1 year in the UFL with the Hartford Colonials, but returned to the NFL the following season and spent the 2011 preseason with the 49ers before signing with the Bears for 3 years. After Chicago, he joined the Buccaneers for 1 season, then the Browns and Jets for 2 years apiece before joining the Eagles, where he actually made his playoff debut in a loss to the Seahawks. And he ended his career spending 1 season as a third-string QB on the Texans roster in 2020. Josh's younger brother Luke had quite the trip around the league as well, playing with 6 teams in 14 years. Luke spent his rookie season with the Browns in 2004 and then spent 4 years in Tampa Bay with the Bucs. He then went upstate and played 3 seasons with the Jaguars before his first stint with the Saints in the 2012 preseason, but he ended up spending the season on the Falcons roster before returning to New Orleans for 4 years, and ended his career playing a preseason with the Cowboys in 2017 before he was released. While Josh McCown is widely remembered as a journeyman QB, he wasn't quite as captivating as Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is arguably the most well-known journeyman quarterback. Not only did he flash glimpses of greatness, but he managed to become a fan favorite in several of the cities that he played in. All in all, Fitzpatrick suited up for 9 different teams during his 17-year NFL career, and he even holds the NFL record for most teams to have started a game for, doing so with each of the 9 franchises he played with. Fitzpatrick started his career off with the Rams in 2005, but after 2 seasons, he moved on to the Bengals for another 2 years. He then signed with the Bills, where he stayed for 4 years, from 2009 to 2012, and this was his longest stint with one team in his career. After Buffalo, Fitzpatrick spent a single season with both the Titans and Texans before 3 consecutive 2-year stints with the Jets, Buccaneers, and Dolphins. It looked like he might stick around Miami for a while after playing well, but with first-round draft pick Tua Tagovailoa coming in, Fitzpatrick was edged out for the starting spot, and this led to him leaving Miami and signing with the Commanders, where he played his final season in 2021 before retiring after suffering a season-ending injury. He may not have lasted long in any one place, but he certainly brought excitement everywhere he went. And along with setting the record for most teams to start a game for, he also holds the record for most teams to score a rushing touchdown for, doing so with 8 different squads. Some other journeyman QBs you might remember are players like Doug Flutie, Jeff Blake, Jeff George, and Trent Dilfer. Doug Flutie was highly successful during his 21-year pro career despite being only around 5'9" to 5'10", but the former Heisman winner didn't start out in the NFL. He first played in the USFL with the New Jersey Generals for 1 season in 1985, then coming to the NFL, suiting up for a season and a half with the Bears, then 2.5 years with the Patriots, before he went north of the border to play in the CFL over the next 8 years, playing for 3 different teams: the BC Lions, the Calgary Stampeders, and the Toronto Argonauts. And Flutie is one of the greatest CFL players ever, winning 3 Grey Cups and 6 CFL MVPs. But he made his way back to the NFL in 1998 with the Bills, where he stayed for 3 years and made his only Pro Bowl appearance, then spending 4 years with the Chargers and closing out his pro career back with the Patriots in 2005. In total, Flutie played for 8 different teams across 3 professional leagues in 21 years. Jeff Blake might not be as recognizable a name as Doug Flutie, but he was a Pro Bowl player back in the 90s with the Bengals. Blake started his career off as a backup for the Jets in 1992 and 93 before finding success in Cincinnati. But once his time in Cincy came to an end, he had a 2-year stint with the Saints, then 1-year stops with the Ravens, Cardinals, Eagles, and Bears, totaling 7 teams over 14 years. Another solid journeyman QB named Jeff was Jeff George. George was the starter for the majority of his 14-year career, but he did move around to 7 different cities in that time. He was the first overall draft pick in 1990, going to the Colts, and he started his career off by winning Rookie of the Year. But after 4 years, George left Indy and joined the Falcons for 3 seasons before landing with the Raiders for 2 years and actually led the league in passing yards his first year there in 1997. But by 1999, he joined the Vikings, then Redskins, before serving as the emergency backup for the Seahawks in 2002. He wasn't rostered in 2003, but he signed with the Bears in 2005 and then closed his career out back with the Raiders, but he was released during final roster cuts in 2006. Now moving on to Trent Dilfer, who actually only played for 5 different teams in his 14-year career, but I'm making the exception due to his interesting journey across the league. Dilfer is remembered today as one of the worst quarterbacks ever to win a Super Bowl, doing so with the Ravens in 2000, and that may be true for that specific season in terms of stats, but Dilfer was actually drafted in the first round by the Buccaneers back in 1994, and he even earned a Pro Bowl appearance there in 1997. He spent 6 years in Tampa Bay before he joined up for his Super Bowl winning season with the Ravens in 2000. But after this, he became the first starting quarterback ever to be traded following a Super Bowl win, moving on to play a few years as a backup with the Seahawks, then 1 year with the Browns, and eventually closing out his playing days with a 2-year stint with the 49ers. And then there are some lesser-known players that spent most of their careers in backup roles like Ty Detmer, Todd Bouman, Blaine Gabbert, Brian Hoyer, Steve DeBerg, JT OSullivan, and Josh Johnson. Both Ty Detmer and Todd Bouman played for 6 teams in 14 years. Detmer played with the Packers, Eagles, 49ers, Browns, Lions, and Falcons, while Bouman spent time with the Vikings, Saints, Packers, Rams, Ravens, and had 3 different stints with the Jaguars. There's also Blaine Gabbert, who suited up for 7 teams during his 14 years in the league. He was drafted 10th overall to be the Jaguars franchise QB, but after things didn't work out in Jacksonville, he hopped around the league, playing with the 49ers, Cardinals, Titans, Buccaneers, and Chiefs, even earning 2 Super Bowl rings along the way as a backup on the Bucs and Chiefs. As for Brian Hoyer, he was rostered on 9 different teams during his 15 years in the league, playing with the Steelers, Cardinals, Browns, Texans, Bears, 49ers, Colts, Raiders, and most notably playing 3 stints with the Patriots, where he actually earned a Super Bowl ring. Steve DeBerg had an interesting journey around the NFL, totaling 7 teams in 18 years played. He started off with the Cowboys in 1977, but got cut from the team before joining the 49ers, where he managed to lead the league in passing in 1979. Despite this brief success, DeBerg then hopped around to the Broncos, Buccaneers, Chiefs, and Dolphins before he retired in 1993. But, strangely enough, he came out of retirement 5 years later in 1998 when he was 45 years old to serve as a backup for 1 year on the Falcons. While Steve DeBerg might at least be a familiar name to you, there's a decent chance you've never heard of JT OSullivan, but he certainly made his way around the league, playing for 13 teams over a 10-year career, and yes, you heard that right. OSullivan started out as a normal backup, playing 3 years with the Saints from 2002 to 2004, but after this, his travels began. First, he went to NFL Europe for the summer in 2004 with the Frankfurt Galaxy, then returning to the NFL and spending time with the Packers, Bears, Vikings, Patriots, and Panthers over just 3 seasons. Then, in just 2007, he suited up for 3 different teams. First the Bears, then returning to the Frankfurt Galaxy of NFL Europe, where he actually led the league in passing and won the league's offensive MVP. After this, he came back to the NFL and ended the 2007 season with the Lions. He was then signed by the 49ers, where he was briefly named the team's starter in the beginning of the year. Then he played with the Bengals, Chargers, and Raiders, but he spent his last season as a pro in the CFL with the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 2012. That may sound like a lot, but the NFL record for most teams played for is 14, held by Josh Johnson, who is still playing today. So far, Johnson has played for 14 NFL teams, but he's actually suited up for 17 different teams across 4 different pro leagues thus far in his 17-year pro career. I'll quickly run through the list in order, but get set because it's a lot. He started in the NFL with the Buccaneers and 49ers, then he went to the UFL with the Sacramento Mountain Lions. He then rejoined the NFL playing with the Browns, Bengals, back to the 49ers, back to the Bengals, the Jets, Colts, Bills, Ravens, Giants, Texans, Raiders, Redskins, then the San Diego Fleet of the AAF, back to the NFL with the Lions, then the XFL where he even led the league in passing with the Los Angeles Wildcats, then back to the NFL again with the 49ers, back to the Jets, back to the Ravens, then the Broncos, then back to San Francisco for the 4th time, and currently he's back in Baltimore playing his 3rd stint with the Ravens. In case you didn't get all that, here's a list of all the teams that Johnson has played for. I'll cap off part 1 with 2 more well-traveled journeymen that still play today, Tyrod Taylor and Josh Dobbs. Tyrod Taylor hasn't played quite as long as Josh Johnson, but he has been able to find more success. Taylor started his NFL journey as a backup with the Ravens for 4 years from 2011 to 2014, seeing little to no action, but he then moved on to Buffalo where he earned the starting spot and actually made a Pro Bowl in his first year there in 2015. But after starting for 3 years in Buffalo and setting multiple franchise records, they brought in future star Josh Allen, so Taylor left Buffalo and joined the Browns where he was named the starter. But he would suffer an injury in week 3, so Baker Mayfield took over and never gave the starting spot back. So after 1 season in Cleveland, Taylor then played 2 years with the Chargers, 1 with the Texans, 2 years with the Giants, and is currently a backup to Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. So far, Taylor has played with 7 different teams over 14 years, but that number may just rise in the coming years. Lastly, there's Josh Dobbs, who's had an interesting career so far with sporadic success. Dobbs began his career as a backup on the Steelers for 2 years, then being traded to the Jaguars before returning to Pittsburgh for another 2 seasons, and then joined the Browns for 1 year. After Cleveland, Dobbs signed to the Lions practice squad, but eventually joined the Titans active roster that same year, but he returned to Cleveland in the offseason, eventually being traded to the Cardinals in 2023, where he was named the starter. But midway through the season, he moved on to the Minnesota Vikings when Kirk Cousins went down with a season-ending injury. Dobbs showed flashes of greatness with the Vikings, but ultimately couldn't stay consistent. He switched cities once again coming into the 2024 season, signing with the 49ers, bringing his team total to 8 in just 8 years in the league. And that'll do it for part 1. Let me know in the comments who your favorite journeyman QB is, and stay tuned for part 2, where I'll be focusing on some of the most successful journeyman QBs in league history, and there may even be a few that surprise you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing so you're in the know when I drop another video. But until then, get set because I'll have another one coming soon.